So, John Mathieson, you were the cinematographer of Mary, Queen of Scots.
Uh-huh.
You're no stranger to doing big, epic period films. You are, after all, the guy who did Gladiator. What about this project, this story, stood out to you and made you want to shoot it?
It was, well, I actually took over from someone. I took over from Seamus. He couldn't do it, and so I came in, kind of hit the ground running. I didn't. So, and it wasn't a big film really. That was part of the difficulty. I mean, it was I think 20, just over 20 or something, which is not a lot when you it that is a lot of money. I mean, 20 odd $1 million is always a lot of money. 25, I think it may be. But when you have to have two countries going to war with each other, and you're setting up the queens and courts and equerries and lords and ladies and dukes and stuff, then there's a lot of costume, a lot of stuff to get ready every day. So that does, but so in fact, it was actually quite tight in terms of what we had to spend and the time we had to do it. And as I said, I came in late, so a bit of a blur. I can't really remember too much about the run up to it. Just we went along as you address things as they came along.
Mhm. Well, then how do you, I mean, working with those kinds of budget limitations, you still have to create a sense of scale and scope. How do you do that when you're faced with that kind of limitation?
Well, it, well, you try and do what you can. You try and play. Go to your producers and director and say, listen, we need to go big this day. We need more people. We need more cranes. We need to put more extras in. We need to, and then we can go back being really small again. I mean, most of the as in any few protagonists, if they're in something, you don't really need too much big stuff. You don't need technicranes and stuff. You just need a camera and a dolly, and don't these modern digital cameras, they don't need too many lights. You go up and down. You don't have everything all the time. You try and play your big cards on the big days, and you scale back when you need to. You have to go through it, and you always trading this against that. Can we do this on this day? No. Can you give me that? No. Well, what can we have on this day? You've got to give me something like, well, you can have this crane for 2 days then, or I need one more day's battle, or I need but having said that, this film was very much in the courts of the two women. So and Josie's theatrical, uh, she's from theatre, so there wasn't too much call for massive suite. I mean, I'd rather be outside. I'd rather be in the courts and going up west into Westminster Abbey and walking through Hampton Court, but we didn't have the time or money. Or was it totally necessary for this script? It wasn't. It was intimate. It's a series of letters between two women, and these women being outmaneuvered by their princes and their lords and ladies and the men that surrounded them. So in the background, really, was a lot of men, I suppose,
Right.
rather
Right.
than a lot of horses and castles and stuff. It was a lot of pressured, men pressuring these women to do things they didn't always want to do. So that's that. But that was it. It wasn't. So I say, much as though I'd, love to shoot a big epic, love to go David Lean, love to do Ridley Scott. This wasn't that.
Mhm. Considering that you came in so late to the process, I'm curious, was there already a general idea of what the aesthetic was going to be in terms of, like, what
Well,
kind of color we want to achieve, or
I mean, I think that was all ongoing because the designer changed too. So it was a big change in the White House, let's say. um, uh, so we're all in the same situation. They'd found locations, and we went to look at more locations, some of which I'm famous was rejecting locations. And they dominated the look for the interior of the designer. He sees something that is a medieval castle a certain way, or a castle that's built out of a certain rock, rough hewn, leveled, measured bricks, or chaotic, coming out of the rock, just being built out of brutish black Scottish rock. Then he would take that on and build that into the interior. So locations always talk to you. I think they always sort of tell you what they want to do. When you walk into a fabulous medieval room and it looks the way it does, you think, wow, this is wonderful. This is why people love this room. You don't try and turn it into something it's not. You go with what you're given. And you think, oh, well, I was expecting something warmer or something. Well, if it's cold and something, well, you go with that. You don't rub things up the wrong way. So we were late coming in. We had to do certain things, but that's not. Even if you're on a big film, I think you do the same thing. You think, oh, this says this to me. Therefore, we will continue this and we'll enhance this, but we will not try and change it. We built some sets, but as I said, they were slaved off what they'd found on location. We were in Oxford in some of the medieval Bodmin Library. We were up to Blackness Castle up in Scotland. We were, there were one or two wonderful places up and down the country that we went to, and then we hooked onto those. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of sets. We had one really big set for Mary's Castle, and Elizabeth had a couple of smaller rooms. Her little private salons, as it were, where that were bedrooms and places where the ladies in waiting men went. Not the big courtroom scenes. They were actually on location. The Harry Potter one at Gloucester Cathedral with the famous quadrangle where she walks through and it's supposed to be Parliament. So, there's a lot of medieval stuff lying about here. So you're not spoiled for choice, but you do get a lot of choices. And then you have to make it work with the budget you do have to not all the places and the most fabulous locations are quite often, there are no hotels nearby. That's why they're fabulous locations, because you can't get to them, or you don't have the hotels to put the crew up. Quite often that's the case. That's why they're fabulous locations. And you sometimes camp out by them. That's what we've done before. We've built roads, put in tents and lived by them, but we didn't have the time or the resources for that.
Right. In terms of, I guess, recreating the period, I'm assuming there's no one alive today who was alive back then, so you don't really have anybody who can, tell you got it right or wrong. But we do have paintings to sort of go off of that, paint an image in our mind of what it was like then. How do you go about trying to recreate that as accurately as possible?
Well, Elizabeth is a very iconic. Elizabeth I is a very iconic image. That her with her lace, fan collars behind her embroidered Basque corset thing, puffy sleeves, the little hands, the white face, the red hair, the pearls everywhere. People who don't even know history that much, they instantly recognize her as a regent. So they kind of know what Elizabeth looked like. Mary, not so much. They knew what Elizabeth dressed like. She was incredibly sort of jeweled and embroidered. I don't know if this was because she'd had this dreadful skin thing with a pox and then he killed her. She went for this white kabuki mad look, sort of red lips, and quite an extraordinary looking individual. So I'm not sure whether she put all the attention on her clothes and made her face stand out. But, I don't know if it was a conscious decision. It looks like it was. So about Elizabeth, that she liked opulent, fabulous fabrics, jewels, all this stuff. Mary, not so much. There's an awful lot of medieval history here. There's an awful lot of documented stuff. And the paintings of the time are pretty simplistic. They weren't as good. Painting was still very much two-dimensional, not into people's likenesses. They did a lot of detail on all the fabulous things they're wearing, like look at all the stitching work. The perspectives weren't really there. A lot of the paintings that were commissioned were sort of very much, the Renaissance was happening in Florence. Those people started painting in perspectives. That hadn't reached the UK then. Paintings were just sort of for religious and for kings. They weren't, they were always depictions. So there are paintings, but not really good studies or light studies of Elizabethan lighting or of that period. But I suppose you've been in these rooms, you've wandered through these palaces, these cathedrals. You know what you've seen them, and they haven't changed that much in 400 or 500 years. So you know what to do. I suppose you've seen many films,
Yes.
or whether you follow them or not, you've seen them. So I mean, there was two ways to go on this. You could have gone, which we did do, and I said it was a bit of a scramble when we started. You could have gone very traditional, the candles, the lovely light, the sort of the cold, clammy interiors of the Scottish castle, and everyone huddled around fires, and a few little flickering oily reeds or candles which we used, and then castles with tiny little windows, and then Elizabeth, much more popular, much more bright, much more open, much more advanced England, much more ahead of the game. Um, you we could, which we did. We kind of followed those rules. Even the costume and some of the casting was outrageous, or not of the period, if one could say. You could have done a Ken Russell type thing or Derek Jarman type thing, and just gone totally modern, white. Very different approach. So I suppose we were traditional in many ways of lighting and camera.
Right.
Thinking about it, you always think about things, should have done this, should have done that. But the castles were the we were in. We followed all. I mean, we had our spin on it. It wasn't historically accurate, I suppose. The lighting may have been what you would have seen at the time, but I don't really care. I just want to make them look good. So it, that's the thing with period. I've done a bit. What do we do now? What do we do? And you ask yourself these questions. What was pressing was actually to get on with it and make a good movie. And there were more logistics that were haunting me, I suppose, than actually wondering, should I just change this candle to this tone or that tone? But there is a difference between the two places, and the two women and the two courts that existed around them. So England was about to enjoy this incredible Renaissance. Elizabeth was, surrounded by papist countries that wanted to kill her, Catholic countries, and she survived assassination attempts, revolutions, the Spanish Armada, and she was the longest reigning monarch for many, many years until I think this current Elizabeth, or Queen Victoria, sorry. So she's won against all odds. Scotland was very much sort of behind in ideas, in egalitarian things and stuff. So that comes across a little bit in the interiors. But more to do probably with the design rather than the lighting.
You're a two-time Oscar nominee for your work on Gladiator and Phantom of the Opera. Can you talk a bit about what that recognition meant for you?
Well, Gladiator, I was absolutely terrified. I just didn't. I just wanted the ground to swallow me up. It was like my seventh movie, and I didn't. I hadn't prepared a speech. I was sitting in the third row, middle aisle. Charlton Heston was over there. Gregory Peck was over there. And apparently I looked relieved when I didn't get I was terrified. I didn't want to go out there and talk for all these people. I was just like, oh, thank you very much. I kind of wish, of course, I wish I'd won, but I didn't. Phantom, I knew I wasn't going to. I think it was Bobsy Richardson, who was very complimentary, I have to say, about Phantom of the Opera. And I'd missed a couple of musicals. I think and Rob Marshall said, "Oh, will you shoot to Chicago?" Anyway, and then this one came. I thought, well, they won Oscars. I thought, right, I'll do this one, a bodice rip of Phantom of the Opera. I'm not a big musical fan, but I did quite like Mary Poppins. I thought it was quite good fun. I thought it looked great as well. And anyway, so I'm not a musical fan. And along came Phantom. And I met Joel. He thought, well, we had a fantastic talk. And he thought, well, he's never going to shoot this. So I thought, I'm going to shoot it. But I said, I'm not a big fan of musicals. So by the time, but I also, it was a great looking film, but it didn't quite. And there was talk of Travolta being the Phantom, and all these different ideas. Anyway, the film was what it was. It didn't quite get the traction for that slingshot into the big thing. But I did get a nomination, which was fantastic, and I had a really good time. And I was sitting next to Sandy Powell, who's an old girlfriend, and she's got more Oscars than you can shake a stick at. and we just had a really good time. And it was in the new Kodak Theatre, which was much nicer than the Shriner thing. So I'm not really sure if that's the answer to your question. Second one was really good fun. Didn't win. First one could have won. Didn't. Terrifying. Also went in a kilt. Not a good idea to wear a kilt in Los Angeles, and it's too hot. Yeah, I don't. Not a big fan of those big. I don't mind watching them. I just didn't. It's like, are you going to win the lottery sort of thing?
Right.
Who wants to be a millionaire? Oh, no, not me. I'd rather just send you something. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very long day with a lot of hoo-ha and a lot of music, and it takes an awful long time to get through it all. I mean, they were sort of threatening us with a digital TV if we made this, or offering us, bribing us with a digital TV if we made the shortest speech. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, 26 awards, 30 seconds each. That means 30 minutes of actual about the people in the room. Where are the other 5 hours coming from? What are we all doing here? And so it's a long day, just be sat in a kilt, a bit hot. I just remember being really nervous. It was like getting a school exam results.
Mm-hmm.
I just, anyway, I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
No, it was great. Well, John, thank you so much. Congratulations
Yeah,
on your work, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
All right, I'm glad we could do it. Thanks very much, sir. Cheers.
You're welcome. Bye.